Hey, welcome to Wolf's Watch. How you doing today? Having a good Saturday? Wanted to share something with you. This photo is our topic for a quick talk today about what happened on January 29th, 1886. This is a picture of Carl Benz. Go to Britannica.com and they've got a lot more information. This is a great photo that shows Carl Benz standing in the light suit in the center here, leaning against one of his cars in 1894. That's a little bit after 1886. Here's what happened in 1886. On January 29th, Carl Benz received the patent for his first car. Imagine that, 1886. It's quite a while ago, right? Quite a while ago. But it was the first car. I wonder, do you think that he had any idea how much of an impact that was going to have on culture, on how we do business, on how we recreate, on just what our lifestyles would be like, the amount of freedom that automobiles eventually helped perpetuate? It's like if you had a horse in 1886, you could go wherever the horse could go at the speed of a horse. Then the thing with the car, it was a blistering like 8 miles an hour fast, 12 miles an hour fast. And look at this thing. It is the size of, a nice size, not chariot, but a nice size vehicle that would be horse drawn, and a nice size carriage. Thank you. And it's just one of the innovations that he had at that time was let's see if we can get this right. Here we go. One of the innovations that he had was he designed the vehicle around the engine, which was, there were several other people like a Mr. Daimler. If you've heard of Daimler-Benz, Mr. Daimler was building a car as well. There were several other people that were building cars at the time or working on their first car at the time. The difference was they were putting an engine into a carriage, whereas Benz designed the whole vehicle around the engine. And, it's interesting because you think, how did he get started doing this? He didn't want to be an automaker. That wasn't his vision. He originally wanted to be a locksmith because he thought it'd be a very practical career. He'd gone to college for mechanical engineering, and he had worked in machine shops. He had thought that being a locksmith would be a great way to earn a living. But along the way, funny thing happened, as happens in many careers. He got the vision for an internal combustion engine, which didn't exist at that time. So starting many years before that, 16 years before that, he began to look towards internal combustion engines. And he, in fact, had been working for a number of years on an internal combustion engine that was stationary to use as a power plant, but not for vehicles. The vehicles was something new. He was riding a bicycle and realized, this would go a lot better if it was motorized. And that was where he began his interest in motorized transportation. Geez, what would have happened if he had really gone big into motorcycles instead of cars? Interesting, something to think about. Plus, another quick fact is his first car was three-wheeled. So it was two wheels in the rear, one in the front with a little tiller like you'd see on a sailboat if you've ever gone sailing, or on a rowboat that has an outboard motor. You have a stick that you use, a tiller to change the angle of the engine or the rudder in order to guide the boat. Well, he did that on the car, and there were no gears, there was no transmission. It made it hard to run. So imagine this: his first car, the three-wheeler, the first time he did a demonstration with it, he crashed into a wall. Wouldn't that be really, really encouraging for the people that were watching, right? Two things to consider. I was wondering, what would that be like? You'd think everybody would just be going, "Wow, automobiles, great idea," but they had horses. This is talking about change, right? When leading change, you've been in a position where you've had to lead change, or you've attempted to, perhaps, or have been part of something that someone was leading, where they're changing something. People don't necessarily like to change when they got something they perceive, especially if they've got something they perceive to be working. And take these reading. Got some notes that I'm going to be looking at here, so that's why I got the reading glasses on. But here's the thing: people didn't like it. They're like going, he had associates that came alongside him that were helping him that left because they're going, you know what, this is useless. There's really no future for an automobile. Imagine that, no future for an automobile or horseless carriage, as they called it in those days. So he fought that. One of the people that really made it possible for him to succeed was his wife. And we talk about women that are strong leaders. Here's a woman that was a strong leader. In 1888, when he didn't think his car was ready, so he got his patent in 1886, right? 1888, he's still working to perfect his car. He wanted to perfect it before he went into production, before he released it to the public. His wife drove it herself. Right? Her wife hops in the contraption. Imagine that. Something like this, one of these kind of contraptions. Hang on, see if I can do this again. Something like this, hops in, drives it herself, and says, you know what? This is ready to go. He believed her. He listened to her. Put it in a technical show, a technology show in 1888, won the top award for it. The rest is history. In fact, in 1894, he built the first production automobile, entered it in the first ever automobile race, which was in France in 1894. If you're an auto racing fan, I am. My dad was huge into it. I've been fascinated with motorcycles. I really appreciate auto racing, though, because the skill it takes to drive. If you don't believe me, if you think NASCAR is just driving in circles, try driving in a circle at 170 miles an hour. Let me know how that goes for you, especially if you've got a half a dozen other people that are trying to do it faster than you. Just saying. So coming back to that first automobile race ever, 1894, he puts his car into it. It goes a blistering. How fast do you think? What kind of speeds do you think his car, the first production automobile, went at the first automobile race in history? So, if you got a comment, put it in the comments. Oh, wait. It went a blistering 12 miles an hour. Imagine that. An auto race going 12 miles an hour. Well, no wonder he got a lot of flack. Horse goes a lot faster than 12 miles an hour, right? People got horses. They can pull, they can use teams to pull carriages, which didn't look too different from what he had built as an automobile at the time. They didn't have a different template. And he had to build everything from scratch. He had to invent the engine that he used. He had to build the entire structure, the body of the vehicle, the automobile, his drivetrain, everything. He had to build all of that from scratch because it hadn't existed before. So he used carriage as a model. Big wheels, a little bit, little suspension. The leaf suspensions that we still see in automobiles today came from carriages in the 19th century. Imagine that. Your suspension in your car dates back 150 plus years. Crazy, huh? So now it's advanced a lot. Yes. Just some of the core design concepts are still the same as in the 19th century, in the late 1880s, when Carl Benz was inventing the first automobile. Now, there were other people that were building cars and trying different, there was a steam, there was an electric, there was an internal combustion engine, all competing. There were multiple versions of these vehicles that people were building. Carl Benz got the patent on January 29th, 1886 for his car. And that put him out in the lead. By 1900, was the biggest car manufacturer in the world. Now, a local family man from Detroit came along, a Mr. Ford, changed that in the early 20th century. But the late 18th, 19th century, going into the first part of the 20th century, it was Benz, Mercedes-Benz. And he had founded his company in 3 years before, the Benz company, which later became Daimler-Benz. We're not going to get into it. It's not the point today. The point today was, so here you have this guy that's doing something nobody else had done. He's getting a lot of flack for it. The only real supporter he had was his wife, and she supported him in terms of psychologically, financially. She had a large dowry from her father when they married. So she had her own financial means. So she helped bankroll him early on. It took him 16 years to develop the automobile. Imagine that, 16 years. She helped him financially through that. They struggled. And even Benz himself, you imagine, think, he's European, 19th century, probably, a silver spoon, comes from royalty or something like that. Not at all. Not at all. He has a very contemporary background. His father died when he was only 2 years old. He was born in 1844. His father died when he was only 2 years old. His mother raised him as a single mom in the middle of the 1800s. Imagine how hard that was. So he grew up poor. They struggled. She barely made ends meet, but she insisted that he get a good education. She did what it took to make sure he got a good education, that he got into polytechnic school. Here in California, we've got Cal Poly. My brother-in-law went to, he's an exceptional mechanical engineer, went to Cal Poly, one of the top engineering programs globally. And Ben's had a similar background. So then, he went to work doing different jobs, and really not the course that he had planned was the path he ended up on, because he could see the opportunity. He could see where it would be a better way to do things, a different way to do things, and created that path. He had someone close to him, had a partner in life. His wife was strong support. He had people come around him that ridiculed him after growing up hard to begin with, growing up poor, being told, it's no different or even worse in the 19th century. Growing up of modest means, as they say, took a lot of flack. No one believed in him. His colleagues turned on him when he didn't get instant results or didn't get results fast enough in developing the car. But it was his wife, strong leader in her own right, that stood by him, encouraged him, took his car for a drive herself, and said, "You know what? This is ready to go to the public." He did that, and in 1888, off they went. All right, so it was in 1883, he was already working on the motors. 1885, he actually had a rolling car. Wasn't until 1886 that he was awarded the patent. 1888, the car finally goes out to the public. Long cycle. We see a lot of things happen faster today in terms of changes, but are they as dramatic? You take someone like Carl Benz. He was born in 1844. He died in 1929. So he went from nothing but horse and buggy, horse and horsepower, literal, as the way to get around, which meant that it was very hard to go much farther than a day or two away at 15 miles an hour, 20 miles an hour, right? Not a lot of range. So to go more than a couple hundred miles from when you lived was unheard of. And even doing that required some big effort, some reason to do it. He went from that to helping invent the internal combustion engine and the industries that came along with that, the rise of steam power as a force to move ships. So he went from nothing but horse and buggy to, by the time he passed away in 1929, seeing airplanes, right? Because in the late 20s, airplanes were well on their way. Flight had started. What a massive shift in his life. Would you be able to stand up to the kind of criticism that he had? And we didn't go that deep into it, but he got ridiculed and very little support, except, we did have someone close, his wife, good partnership, very important. Have people close to you that will stand by you and help you out in any way they can when you're on your path. Imagine taking all that heat after growing up poor. He could have gotten a good job, right? Could have lived comfortably as an engineer, but he didn't. He had that vision. He had that vision for the automobile, and it was something tangible. And he wasn't looking for other people to give to him. He didn't feel entitled. He didn't expect the government to support him. He didn't expect other people to support him. He did what he could. He and his wife, as a team, did what they could to keep things going, because he had the vision for the automobile as a new way to transport. Amazing. Did he know that it was going to have such a big impact on January 29th, 1886 on the world? His automobile that got patented then. Would you push through that? Who do you have that supports you like that? If you when you crash your new genius invention into the wall and everybody laughs at you and ridicules you, who do you have that's going to stand by and go, yeah, you know what? That was kind of funny there, but let's pick up the pieces and go back to the shop, put it back together and roll again. Okay. Come on. Don't stop now. Hmm? Who do you have like that? Who are your advisors? There's something else he went on to do in the late 1800s. I think it was like 1818, somewhere between 1894 and 1899. He invented the flat engine. Now, if you're a car person, to this day, Porsche uses flat engine. So it's the engine, the basic engine configuration that Porsche uses was invented by Carl Benz in the 19th century. So imagine that. Look at the impact that he had, right? And he didn't stop. He kept innovating. So don't stop. Keep innovating. Have people around you that can help you, and that will, if it's delusion, right? There are times when I don't know about you, I've done that where I'm just like going, man, I can see it. It's tangible. I know this is going to work. And I'm so far into it, I've really deluded myself. They need to step back. So I've got people in my life that'll grab me by the collar and go, hey, you're over the edge here. Okay, come back. Come on. And will help me discern the difference between delusion and innovation. So sometimes we got to say, yeah, it's not now, or yeah, you know what, I was totally off track on that, or you need to keep going after it. You need to have those people close around you, strong advisors, family and friends that will be there, stand strong with you as you're making that path. So something to consider on Saturday, January 29th, 1886. Carl Benz gets the patent for the internal combustion automobile. And then he patented everything else related to the building of it, which put him on a path for phenomenal success, but also a huge impact on culture. And he and his wife stayed very, very involved in giving back. It's a great thing about free enterprise. You become successful, put you in a position where now you've got tools to have a bigger impact by giving back to the communities, by helping others, reaching out to those people that are reaching out a hand for a hand up rather than a hand out, and being able to grab that hand and give them a hand up and help them in their future. And the Benzes did that along with the Daimlers. There's still a Daimler-Benz. It's not the correct name for it, but Daimler-Benz Foundation that does good work in the community to this day. Thank goodness for that. Thank goodness for people like Carl Benz, Andrew Carnegie. We wouldn't have Carnegie Hall if it wasn't for Andrew Carnegie being in a position to be able to, provide the financial resources and other resources to have it built and have it dedicated to what it is today. So just a quick shot. Something a little bit lighter on Saturday. There's a lot of wild news as always. Headlines are always headlines, right? But just something positive to think about. And, there's a lot of history like that we can learn from. So I hope you enjoyed that. It's great seeing you. Thanks for being a part of Wolf's Watch. I'm Wolf. Smash that like button, subscribe, stay with us, send comments. We respond to comments. We're always paying attention to that. And is today going to be a day where you change the world? It's possible. It can happen. We're with you. We're in this together. So keep after it. Have an awesome weekend, and I will see you on the trail.